喂，测试。 How are you all today? Pretty good? Good. It feels like now we only meet once a month, so it feels like a long time since I've seen you. So I hope you had a good, happy start to the Year of the Horse, 新年快乐, and you had, I think, 9 days of vacation, right? So quite a long time. Nice opportunity. And then right after that, we had another vacation last weekend. So February was a good month for vacation. All year vacation. Yeah, I like that too. So yeah. So anyhow, some of us are back at work again, and yeah, we're getting into the spring. I feel like right now this feels a little bit like spring weather. It's a little bit wet. But I'm glad it's raining because we really need the rain. I was reading recently that some of the reservoirs, that hold the water, are getting low. And I remember a few years ago, we had a drought in Taichung, or probably in Taiwan. And so I think you remember that we had to, because of the drought, you remember what a drought is, right? What's a drought? Yeah, means there's not enough water, right? So we had a drought, and that meant that we had to ration water, okay? And what does ration mean? Yeah, it means to limit, to give you only so much, right? So if we say we're going to ration our food, it means that maybe I will decide, okay, each person eats only so much, and we have to kind of divide it up into certain portions, and it's limited. And so, yeah, so we say ration water, ration food. Now, ration can also be a noun. You can say, I received my food ration for today. or he gave me his water ration. So it can be a portion, a amount of water or food, okay? So anyhow, during the drought, we had to ration our water, and I hope that doesn't happen again. But if it keeps raining, we should be okay. So let's say together, drought, drought, ration, ration. Again, this is a verb or a noun, 名词 or 动词. Either way, you can say to ration something or to get a ration. Yeah. Okay, so the big news, of course, recently there's been a lot of big news, but the big news is the war in Iran. And so I thought we would start with this. There's many articles on this, and I just picked one. And so here it says, according to Trump, it says, United States can fight Iran forever. Government personnel told to leave region, okay? So personnel, of course, are people who work for the government. We could say government staff or government, here, of course, the people that work at the library, we say they are the library personnel, okay? Not personal, but personnel. So let's say it together, personnel. Personnel. Right. So I think the closest word would be staff, S-T-A-F-F. So we could say government staff, government personnel. Okay. So let's see what he is saying here. Okay. Okay, so I'll read this. It says, President Donald Trump said that the United States has the ability to fight Iran forever without running out of weapons, as the widening Middle East war is causing oil prices to soar and the stock market to plunge. Okay, so there's two words here that are like the opposites of each other. First word here is soar, and the second word is plunge. Okay, so I think we've studied both of these words before. Soar means to go to what? To go up. And when we think of the word soar, we often use this word for something that flies, like an airplane or a bird, right? We can say the bird soared into the air, the airplane soared into the sky. So to soar means to go very high. So why don't we say together, soar, soar. But then plunge means what? To fall, and usually to fall very, very, very seriously. And again, when I think of plunge, soar is about the air. Plunge, I think more of often like water, right? You can plunge into a swimming pool or plunge into the ocean or to the sea, right? It means to kind of jump into, to dive into. Yeah, I think that would be another word, dive, to dive into something, but to plunge into something. But, plunge can also mean, if we are going to really get involved in something, we're going to get deep into something. So I'll give you, for example, let's say you have a lot of work that you need to do today. You have lots of things you need to do. You have a whole list of things you need to do. And you can say, I plunged into my work because I need to plunge into my work so that I can finish it. So it means to jump into something, to get involved in something very deeply. Okay, so plunge is also a good word. Why don't we say together, plunge? Plunge. Okay, so and plunge, is a word that we could use it as a 动词 or 名词. Of course we say to plunge, but you could say he took a plunge into the water. Okay, or something like that. You could use it as a noun. Okay, so of course here we say U.S. has the ability, the capability. That's a word I know we've talked about that, where we say the ability is like the 能力, right? But sometimes sometimes people say capability. Capability, you can see here that it has the word ability. And of course, if someone is capable of doing something, it means they are able to do something. So that's an A. So then so you can see these two words are very similar. Ability, capability, able, capable. Okay? So why don't we say it together? Capability. Capability. Ability. Ability. Capable. Capable. Able. Able. Right. So you can say he is a very capable worker, means he's very good at something. He's good at his job. Or he has many capabilities. He has a lot of abilities. He's able to do something. of holding 10,000 people. So the word that you're thinking, maybe the word you're thinking about is when we talk about capacity, right? So capacity means how much you can hold, okay, or how much. So, you know, when I go down the road sometimes and I'm sitting next to a city bus, I notice there's a little sign on the door and it says, in Chinese, of course, but it says capacity, 40 people, okay? Or when you go in the elevator, there's usually a sign that says, capacity, 10 people or 12 people. So that means how much can you hold? So you could say, what is the capacity of this room? And some might say, 50 people. Or sometimes we say maximum, max, M-A-X, maximum capacity means what's the most. Why don't we say that too? Capacity. Capacity. Right. Okay, so here he says they can do this without running out of weapons as the widening. Of course, widening means it's getting broader or widening. It's getting wider, okay? Middle East war is causing oil. Of course, oil prices are going up and stock market is going down. Okay, so let's read this together. President Donald Trump said, the United States has the ability to fight Iran forever without running out of weapons. Weapons. As the widening Middle East war is causing oil prices to soar. And the stock market to plunge. Plunge. Let's say this word too, widening. Widening. Right, okay. So it says, let's go on. It says, the Trump administration has given no clear timeline for how long the war with Iran could last, with the president saying it could be around 4 weeks. Vice President J.D. Vance indicating the United States is locked in a multi-year conflict, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio predicting the hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. Okay, so you have 3 people here commenting on this war. Okay, so of course when we say administration, that's talking about the government, right? We could say usually whoever the president is. Like in Taiwan we talk about the Lai administration. So here we have the Trump administration. Okay, why don't we say that word, administration? Administration. Of course, that comes from the verb 动词, to administrate, which is, like 行政, right? We say the 行政院 is administrative yuan. So why don't we say it together, to administrate? Okay, then that would be a T-E, of course. To administrate. Okay, so the administration has given no clear timeline. Now, a timeline, of course, we've talked about this, is how much time something is going to take, right? Now, sometimes, if you like history, like I enjoy reading history books, they will actually print a timeline, and they'll say, okay, what is the time? It's not a schedule, it's more of a history of something. So there'll actually be a line, and they'll say, okay, what's the timeline? Okay. For example, if you wanted to say, what's the timeline of the Zhonghua Mingguo, right? Okay, maybe it'll say, 1911, and then it'll have these different key dates, and it'll be like a line with these key dates on it, and that we could say that is a timeline. But here, this timeline is more of about a schedule. What is your timeline for getting your work done? Or what is your timeline for this trip? What's your schedule? What's your predicted schedule? When are you going to do something or buy? Does everybody understand that? Yeah. Okay. So why don't we say together, timeline. Timeline. So somebody might tell you, they might say, I am on a very strict timeline, 严格的, or I'm on a very tight, tight timeline. Okay. But you could also say I'm also on a very loose timeline. It's like it doesn't really matter. It's no tight schedule. Okay, so he's given no clear timeline for how long the war with Iran could last. Now, he said it would be about 4 weeks, and then Vice President Vance indicate means to show, to reveal, to express, okay, to indicate the United States is locked in a multi-year conflict. Now, of course, multi-year means multiple years, several years, many years, or at least several years. It doesn't have to be many years. But why don't we say together, multi-year. Multi-year. Of course, I think you all know this, but whenever we say the word multi, it comes from the word multiple, right? So multiple means many or several, more than one, or more, multiple. You could say that right now he is working on multiple jobs, means several or many, okay? So why don't we say together, multiple. Multiple. Yeah. Triple, yeah. Quadruple. 5 times. Yeah, it's quintuple. Yeah. I think then we just say multiple. You could, but that's very uncommon because by that time it's just getting too long. And I don't think there's a 7. So he just said quadruple. And then we have triple. Of course, double, right? So we have double and then triple. Why don't we say together triple, quadruple, quintuple. Yeah, so, yeah. But, it's funny, I don't hear too many people. Once you get to triple, after triple, usually most people just say several or many, or they just say 4, right? So, yeah. So, yeah, if you say triple, double is a word we use a lot. Double, of course, means 2, right? So, yeah, these are all words we can use to indicate how many, okay. So, Marco Rubio predicted. What does predict mean? You remember the... Yeah, like every day when you watch the news, they usually predict the weather, right? They say, today it's going to turn cold, or it's going to get hot, or it's going to rain. So that's a weather prediction, T-I-O-N, prediction. Okay? So why don't we say together, predicting. Predicting. And then as a means, prediction. Prediction. Right, okay. So he predicted the hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. I think what he means is that the U.S. military still has a lot more that they're going to do. They're going to hit Iran even harder going forward. Yeah, so that's what he's saying. Okay, so let's read this then. The Trump administration has given no clear timeline. No clear timeline for how long the war with Iran could last. With the president saying it could be around 4 weeks. Vice President J.D. Vance indicating the United States is locked into a multi-year conflict. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio predicting the hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. Military. Right, okay. I'll say I've watched a lot of comments. A lot of people have been very impressed. A lot of people I've been reading and watching, they're really impressed with with Rubio in recent weeks and months, I think it'll be very interesting the next presidential election to see. I think these two guys will be in competition for the president of Republic to become the Republican candidate, either Rubio or Vance. But it seems like he's getting a lot more. He's been higher profile. More people are watching him and looking at him recently. I mean, of course, Vance is always there, but Rubio's the one who's talking about everything and, talking to the reporter. Well, yeah. J.D. Vance has that beard, so yeah. But yeah, Rubio, yeah, he's a good-looking guy. He's Cuban American, So if he ever becomes president, he would certainly be our first Cuban American president, So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And he did try to get the nomination for the Republicans, the 共和党 for presidency before, but he didn't make it. They picked somebody else. I'm sure he can, yeah. Who? Yeah, no, I doubt he speaks Italian, but you never know. Sometimes, it's funny. Sometimes you're surprised to find out that somebody famous actually speaks many languages. I've seen that. Sometimes they're movie stars and they can speak many languages, or someone from sports. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like someone like Lionel Messi, the 足球 player. He's from Argentina, right? But I'm sure he speaks at least 2 or 3 or 4 languages, because he's played for many teams. Of course, he can speak Spanish. I'm pretty sure he can speak English. Who knows what else he can speak, yeah. So anyhow, it says here the next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now, Rubio told reporters on March 2 without elaborating. Okay, and when you say he did not elaborate, what does that mean? Yeah. Now, this word elaborate is an interesting word because it can be used as a 形容词 or a 动词. If we just say the word okay, and I think I've talked to you about this before, we pronounce it differently, right? So if I say if we're going to elaborate with an a sound on it, that is a 动词, okay? So let's say your friend says, I have a really great plan to make lots of money. And then you say, well, okay, please elaborate. What that means is please give me more details. Give me more information. I want to know all the details, okay? But if we use this word as a 形容词, we say elaborate. Now notice the pronunciation is different. Instead of saying to elaborate as a 动词, if I say as a 形容词, I say this is a very elaborate. You see the difference there. To elaborate with an A, and then elaborate as a 形容词. Elaborate means what? Yeah, or fancy. Maybe that's a simple way of saying it. It's fancy, right? You could say the decorations were very elaborate, or she's wearing a very elaborate dress. It's very fancy. It's very, very intricate. Actually, that's another good word too. But intricate usually means detailed. Lots of details. Yeah, lots of. If we say intricate, you could say it's very detailed. So why don't we say this word first let's say it as a 动词, because that's how they're saying it here. Let's say it, to elaborate. To elaborate. Okay, and then let's say it as a 形容词, elaborate. Elaborate. Right. You can say that's a very elaborate dress or whatever. I haven't. I've never been to Barcelona, but I see that they just finished the roof. The very elaborate. Yeah. Yeah, or you could say that the design is also very intricate, right? But elaborate, I think, would be a better word for the. What he's talking about in Barcelona, there's a very famous church that they've been working on it for what, 100, I forget, very long time. Yeah. And they just finished the peak, the top, the very highest point is finally done. And so, yeah, I think it's the tallest church in the world, I think. Spire. Yeah. A spire usually means, when you have the top of the, that usually at the church you have Yeah. A steeple is, the steeple is usually the whole structure, you know. If you have a church, you know, and then you have this structure that, we call this the steeple. And some churches have a really tall steeple, and some the steeple is, you know, smaller. Maybe it's only like that. But spire is more of a general word. We could say the spire, yeah.
Does the spire have to be spiral?
No, it's just, but generally I think it's pointed. It has a point on it like that, yeah. So why don't we say together, spire, spire, steeple, steeple. But I think he's thinking of the word spiral. And spiral means to go like this. You know, if something makes that shape, we say to spiral. Yeah. Why don't we say that too? Spiral. Spiral. Okay, so this could be a 形容词, or you could use it as a verb, 动词. You could say the bird is spiraling down, or something is, or you could say a spiral as a shape, like as a shape. So anyhow, why don't we say, we haven't said this either. Let's say intricate. Intricate. Yeah, it means having lots of detail. Okay, so of course he says the next phase. Phase means a period of time or section or part. I guess we could simply just say part. The next part. Okay, the next phase. Why don't we say together phase? Phase. Okay, so it'll be more punishing on Iran. It means it will punish Iran more. It'll damage them more. Okay, so let's read this. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now. Rubio told reporters on March 2 without elaborating. Okay. So it says here, U.S. and Israeli military forces attacked Iran on February 28th. That killed, attacked on, it should be, it's kind of, attacked on Iran on February 20th, that killed. It's, on Iran, February 20th, that killed. I would say, to me, it would be Israeli attack on Iran on February 20th. Okay. Anyhow, I guess that's right. Okay, so I'll start again. It says U.S. and Israeli military forces attacked Iran on February 28th. That killed the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Officials from the United States and Israel said they have launched more than 1,200 strikes aimed at destroying Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear development programs. Okay, so it says here. Okay, so of course we have the attack, gongji, attack to kill the country's supreme. What does supreme mean? The highest, right? So this word gets used in many different ways, right? We could say that is the supreme, Supreme Court, 最高法院, right? Or whatever. You could say this is supreme. You could use it as a 副词, wait, supremely, right? This is supreme. I mean, anything that's the best or the greatest or the highest, okay? So why don't we say together supreme. Supreme. So there's highest leader, supreme. Now, this is a Iranian Persian word, Ayatollah. Okay, it's a title. Okay, why don't we say together, Ayatollah. Ayatollah. Yeah, and his name is Ali Khamenei. Okay, so it says officials said they launched. Of course, launch means to begin, to start, or to shoot. Launch more than 1,200 strikes or attacks. We could say this is like an attack. Aimed at, designed to or focused on or targeted at destroying Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear development programs. Now, you know what a missile is, a 飞弹, right? But what is a ballistic missile? Yeah, it means a missile that goes up really high and then comes down, right? It's not just a short missile or a small missile. Usually it goes way up almost into space, and then it falls and comes down. Now, most nuclear weapons they use this kind of missile. Like if the U.S. shoots if China or Russia or U.S., they use these big ballistic missiles that shoot nuclear weapons. Of course, nuclear is, 核子, or here we're talking about 核子弹, right? Okay, so nuclear. Why don't we say these words together? Ballistic. Ballistic. Nuclear. Nuclear. I'll say something about ballistic. It's kind of funny. If you ever hear somebody say, when I gave him the news, when I told him the news, he went, W-E-N-T, he went ballistic. What does that mean? He got super angry, okay? So if someone goes, we say to go ballistic, or they went ballistic, it means they exploded. Not really exploded, but their anger, they blew up. Sometimes, that's another way we say he blew up. Blew up, blew means to power, to blow. Yeah, he blew up, or we could say he exploded, or he went ballistic. Okay, these are all expressions that say someone they got it really angry suddenly, very suddenly. Okay, so we could say that ballistic, but why don't we say blew up, blew up, exploded. Exploded. Yeah, so these are all words that have this idea, but you can use them when someone gets very angry. Yeah. Snap means to yeah, but to snap is more about, it's the same idea, general idea, but snap is to, it's like to suddenly break. So let me give you an idea, a picture in your mind. If you're with a dog, and you're petting the dog, and suddenly the dog tries to bite you, suddenly without warning, we call that the dog snapped at me, right? It tried to bite me suddenly, and maybe I didn't even expect it. I'm sure you've done that. You're petting the dog, and suddenly the dog or the cat. Cats love to do that, right? Cats always, they act real friendly, and you're trying to pet them, and suddenly they try to bite you. They snap at you. So that's the same idea, right? If you're talking to somebody or you say something and suddenly they attack you, suddenly they snap at you. It doesn't mean they really attack you, but they say something to you suddenly, like they lose their temper. Yeah. Snappy or? Yeah, I guess it means it's a real quick, sharp. It could mean someone who's irritated or angry. Yeah. Someone. So if he said comeback, C-O-M-E-B-A-C-K. Comeback it's one word. Comeback means to respond, to reply to somebody. So you could say a snappy reply, right? Let's say you're having a discussion, you say something and someone gets irritated or angry and they come back with you suddenly with something. We could say it that way. Yeah. Okay. So let's read this together. U.S. and Israeli military forces. Let's say it again. Israeli military forces attacked Iran on February 28, that killed the country's supreme leader. Supreme leader. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Officials from the United States and Israel said they have launched more than 1,200 strikes aimed at destroying Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear development programs. Programs. Some people, especially I think British people, they say missile. Okay, so Americans generally say missile, but sometimes you'll hear someone say missile, and you know either way is okay. I mean it's all fine. Missile, he said it that way. Missile, yeah. So basically, this second I is we say a long I. It's like an I, missile. Okay, so yeah, either way is okay. It says Iran's counterattacks thus far have killed at least 6 U.S. service members. I think usually this word should be 2 separate words. I think this should be, instead of one word, it should be. But it might be sometimes, you know, it's funny because years and years ago, we used to say servicemen, okay? Because instead of like, and when we say servicemen in America, or I guess we could say service women, it means military, like soldiers. Yeah. Now, of course, soldier is very specific. It usually means like 陆军, right? But if you say like an airman or someone who's in the Air Force, or a sailor, or a Marine, you know, 海军陆战队, they're all service members. But when we say soldier, usually that's very specific, like you're in the 美国陆战, you know, 陆军, right? So yeah, but so in general, we use this general word, we say service members, yeah. But again, you know, like a long time ago, people would just say servicemen, but of course now there's service women too. It's not just men. So yeah. Now, what is a counterattack? Yeah, it means to counter means to, you know, like 反对 or to oppose, to go back, to counter something. Like, okay, for example, let's say we're having a discussion or we're having a debate, and I make my argument. I have my argument, but you have a counter argument. A counter argument means after I make my argument, you will come back with your argument, right? So your case. So we say to counter something means to go against something or come back against something. So a counterattack, you know, the U.S. and Israel, of course, attack first, and then Iran counterattack. They attack back, okay? So why don't we say together, counterattack? Counterattack. Okay, so thus far, or so far, have killed at least 6 U.S. service members, okay? And again, I think it's better to have that as 2 words, but I don't know, maybe they can write it as 1 word too. Okay, so let's read this together. Iran's counterattacks thus far have killed at least 6 U.S. service members. Service members. Right. So I'll just give you one more example with this. Often in America, when we're talking to somebody and maybe we're talking about the military or if you ask somebody or somebody asks you, were you in the service? That means were you in the military? Or you say, I was in the service. And we all say the service, okay? You don't say in service, but you say in the service. So service becomes a 名词, and it means that I served in the military, okay? So that's a very common, I don't think they say that much in other countries, but in America we use that expression a lot. He was in the service, yeah. No, it means you're in the military, yeah. Yeah, I guess so. You know, if you were in the police, you might say he served in the force. You know, force, F-O-R-C-E, force. He's on the force. He's in the force. That refers to the police, you know, 警察. But if you say he or she was in the service, it means they are in the military. Technically, I don't think that includes the Coast Guard, because the Coast Guard, you know, in Taiwan, why do you say Coast Guard in Taiwan? Yeah, in America, the Coast Guard is not under the 国防部. It's under a different 部门. It's under the I think it's the Department of the Interior, kind of like the 内政部, you know. So it's a different 部门. So it's not technically the military. Although during wartime, the Coast Guard joins and assists, works with the military. I mean, it kind of joins the military. Yeah. 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 Well, GI is a term we use for all service members. Yeah, yeah. It's a real general term. But it's a term that I don't hear too much anymore. I mean, it's a very, like during World War II. Where? Vietnam War, yeah. I haven't seen that term used in more like the last 20 or 30 years. It doesn't seem to get used as much for modern, like recent wars. But yeah, Vietnam or Korean War or World War II, especially World War II, but those three wars, you hear people say GI. And GI comes from what? Does everybody know what that stands for? Yeah, it stands for government issue. Yeah. Say, whoops. Okay, GI. So there's a very famous children's, and it's not even children's, comic book, you know, kind of like manhua, right? And the guy's name is G.I. Joe. When I was a kid, you know, you could buy G.I. Joe dolls, and there was a G.I. Joe comic, and there's G.I. Joe movie, but that's his name, G.I. Joe. Yeah, very popular. Yeah, so that comes from the word government issue. Government issue means it's when we say issue, we're not talking about a 事情. We're talking about issue means to give you something too, right? You can say, where did you get your uniform? You can say, oh, that was issued by my school. It means my school handed it out. It gave it. So you could say the school issues your uniforms or bags or pens or whatever the school or the military or the government gives you, we say that is issued. It's given to you. So government issue means it's handed out by the government. So we could say that the military, you know, the soldiers are kind of like government issue. So we say GI. Yeah. So yeah, anyhow, so GI is used as a 名词, like he is or she is a GI, or the GIs, you know, were there. But we could also say a GI as a 形容词, right? Okay, so anyhow, that's, if you ever see that, you'll know what that means. Oh, GI, yeah. Oh, okay, in Chinese. Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people forget, you know, I think I've told you, I think some of you know this, some of you don't know this. Most people I talk to don't know this, but a lot of the road names in this neighborhood come from that. You know, we have 美村路, right? We have 华美街, you have 中美街, you know, all these names that are related to the 美军 in this area, so yeah. Okay, so that's a title, so we won't read that. Let's go to the next one. It says, the United States ordered non-emergency government personnel and their family members to leave Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, and Jordan, and close several diplomatic missions across the region on March 3 as the war escalated. Now, we've learned the word escalate before. We've talked about this word many times. What does it mean? Increase, to grow, right? I've told you many times, you know, when you go to the 百货公司, you stand on the escalator and it takes you up. But as I've also said, escalators also go down, which is kind of funny. You can ride the escalator down, but yeah. Now here, of course, this is an elevator, 电梯, right? Elevator. But escalators like those stairs, you stand on them, they go up or they go down. So why don't we say together, to escalate. To escalate. Okay, so here this becomes a 形容词. Now, of course, we say emergency. Like sometimes when we say emergency personnel, we're talking about like, you know, the fireman or firefighter or police officer. You know, those are emergency personnel, especially firefighters, or in the ambulance, the paramedic. But we also say there's an abbreviation. Yeah, ER, but the ambulance, the guys in the ambulance, that's, we call them. But there's another name for paramedic. It's an abbreviation. I'm forgetting. It's very common. I'll think of it soon. But yeah, we call those emergency personnel. Okay, but here it says non-emergency. Yeah, EMT. That's it. EMT. Yeah, yeah. So EMTs or paramedics or firefighters are all emergency personnel. But here it says the U.S. ordered non-emergency government personnel and their family members. Now, there's a word that we use often for this. We say their dependents. Okay, so dependent means, of course, when we say depend means, to cow, right? But dependent is the people who are part of your family, okay? So you might say all military dependents have to leave. It means the family members of the military personnel, okay, of the service members, okay? So, uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Why? She doesn't depend on you? Okay. She thought you were insulting your wife? Okay. I think that kind of stuff is stupid. I mean, that's just people are too sensitive or politically correct, right? I don't know. But I think that was an extreme response. Obviously, we talk about a dependence visa, right? If, like, your children depend on you, right? I mean, they're not like, they can't do whatever they want. So, I think they were probably offended because it implies that your wife depends on you, yeah, or something. But it's a general term. It doesn't really mean anything. So anyhow, I wouldn't worry about that. Why don't we say together, dependence? Dependence. Okay, non-emergency. Non-emergency. There's another term that we often use instead of non-emergency. We say non-essential. Yeah, essential, it doesn't mean that they're not valued about, but essential, of course, means something you really, really need. It's something you need. It's a need. You must have it, right? What are your essential needs? What are our essential needs? Water, right? Food, air. Yeah, we need those things. Of course, if we don't have them, we're going to die, right? So when we say non-essential personnel, it means people that don't absolutely have to be there, right? They don't have to be there right now. So maybe, it's not, someone says, well, we don't need you right now, so you can leave right now. You're not essential to the situation. It doesn't mean that you're not valued or that you're not worth anything, but it's just we don't need you right now. Okay, so why don't we say together non-essential? Non-essential. Non-essential. Okay, so he said they told him to leave Qatar, okay, Kuwait, Bahrain. You know where Bahrain is? It's an island, little island in the Middle East, in the Iraq and Jordan, and close several diplomatic missions. Now, mission is like your embassy, like your 大使馆, right? It's your representative office, okay? So we say diplomatic missions. Okay, let's read this. The United States ordered non-emergency government personnel and their family members to leave Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, and Jordan, and close several diplomatic missions. Diplomatic missions across the region on March 3 as the war escalated. Escalated. Yeah. When we were reading this, I just thought of, maybe we've talked about this before. There's a really good movie called Argo. Have you seen this movie? Yeah. It came out about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it's a true story about Iran. It's about, maybe you've seen it on TV, but it's about, when Iran, when they had their revolution, their Geming, of course, they took 52 American hostages from the embassy, right? But there were 6 that escaped out the back, and they were hiding with the Canadians. The Canadian 大使, they were hiding in his house. And the U.S. CIA was trying to figure out how we get these 6 people out of Iran without getting caught, right? So they sent the CIA guy to basically pretend that they were part of a movie crew, that they were filming a movie, which is kind of crazy, right? It's a crazy idea to say, oh, we're filming a movie in Iran, so, and he said they were Canadians, right? So he said these are 6 Canadians, and they're here with a film crew to look at a location for filming a science fiction movie, which is kind of funny. And so they had to go through all this to say, to get the paperwork and say these 6 are with Canadians. And of course, they didn't come into the country as Canadians, so the Canada gave them fake passports so they could leave Canada, but they had to pretend, they had to fool the Iranians to believe that these 6 guys, they're men and women, that they're part of a film crew from Canada. And, it worked. They actually got them out. But the funny thing was I heard that, this movie came out. By the time the movie came out, it was, of course, 25 years later or something. 35 years later. But they said that this was secret after it happened. They couldn't tell anybody what really happened until years later when they were able to release this news. So so it was a good movie. I don't know if you haven't seen the movie, see it, because it's connected to this, right? But the reason I thought about that is because those 6 people included dependents, right? It was like a embassy officer, but also his wife, was there, and anyhow, it's interesting. The main character his name is Ben Affleck. Yeah, so maybe you've heard of him. Okay, so anyhow, so it says here, the move came as the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, was hit by 2 drones in an attack that sparked a limited fire and minor material damage to the building, a Saudi Defense Ministry spokesperson announced in a post on the ministry's X account. Okay, so the U.S. Embassy, the 大使馆 in Riyadh. Riyadh is the capital of Saudi Arabia, of Saudi Arabia. They were hit by 2 drones. Of course, everybody knows what a drone is, right? 无人机, right? In an attack that sparked. Spark, of course, we could say it triggered, it started, okay? A limited fire. So limited means it's a smaller fire. It's not a big fire. And minor material damage. Material, of course, just means physical damage. Some damage to the building, okay? We say material damage to the building. Now, what's the opposite of minor? Major, right? M-A-J-O-R. We say major, minor. Okay, so this is minor. Okay, so let's read this together. The move came as the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, was hit by 2 drones in an attack that sparked limited fire and minor material damage to the building. A Saudi Defense Ministry spokesperson announced in a post on the ministry's X account. Okay, yeah, of course, X used to be Twitter, right? Yeah. Well, yeah, but compound, of course, is a whole area, right? We say complex or a compound. It's like many buildings. But here, I don't know. Maybe it is a compound, but I think there's one main embassy building, and I don't really know what their embassy looks like. Yeah. Consulate's different because a consulate's a lower office. It's like, for example, most countries in America, they have an embassy in Washington, D.C., but they have consulates in New York City or Los Angeles. So consulate's like a smaller office. So AIT has it's like a consulate in Kaohsiung. Yeah. Would be like an embassy. Yeah, we say consulate. Yeah, why don't we say together, consulate? Right. So, like in U.S. has a consulate in, the embassy is in Beijing, but they have a consulate in Hong Kong and Shanghai and, other places. They used to have a consulate in Chengdu, but it got closed because the U.S. closed the China consulate in Dallas or Houston. I forget. It was one of those two cities in Texas. So China retaliated by closing the U.S. consulate in Chengdu. So yeah, anyhow. So we could say, like AIT, it's like a consulate in Kaohsiung. I wish they had an office in Taichung, but I guess Taichung's too close to Taipei. It's kind of right in between. It's funny because my friends who like to want to get their new U.S. passport or get something done at AIT, the big secret is if you want to get it done fast, go to Kaohsiung. It's faster. Going to Taipei, you have to paidui and wait a long time. There's lots of people, but they say if you go to Kaohsiung, it's much quicker. So if you ever have to do anything at AIT, maybe go to the Kaohsiung office. Yeah, I don't know if you can go there for everything, but yeah, maybe some things. Okay, so here it says, meanwhile, U.S. oil prices soared again to reach the highest level since 2024, and stocks plunged at the opening bell on March 3. What's the opening bell? So, the New York Stock Exchange and many stock markets, they ring a bell to open the market every day, I think it's more symbolic, of course. But, some stock markets, I think now they trade 24 hours a day. But most stock markets have certain hours, right? There's hours where you can trade. So we say the opening bell means. Now, of course, opening bell could be used for other things, right? We could say the opening bell of a boxing match. When people box, there's a bell. They ring a bell. We say opening bell. Of course, for school, do we call that the opening bell? We call that the school. I guess we just call it the school bell. In Taiwan, I don't know if they use a bell, but in America, schools will use a bell to announce the beginning of each class, right? When the class begins, there's a bell, and students know you have to be in the classroom, sitting down, right? If you're late, then yeah. There's an electric bell. It's like an electric, some schools might just play a recording now, but I know there used to be like an electric bell, kind of like a fire alarm, almost like some buildings have a fire alarm. It's similar to that, yeah. But yeah. I remember as a student, maybe you remember the same thing, as running to get to the class before the bell, right? Because you need to be in the classroom before the bell rings. I still have, I still remember having bad dreams about trying to get to class and you can't find the classroom. Like, where is it? And the bell's going to go. And I was having a nightmare, mong, So, yeah. Okay, so let's read this. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices soared again to reach the highest levels since 2024. And stocks plunged at the opening bell on March 3. Right. So I know what some people were thinking is, now's a good time to buy, right? So yeah. Anyhow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We say emergency strategic reserve. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oil prices went down again, yeah. Because the U.S. has a big strategic reserve. You know what a reserve is, right? Yeah, it means you save something, right? So the U.S. has a big oil, I think it's called a strategic oil reserve. What is strategic? Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because, this whole Iran war, I've been reading a lot of people talking about this, and they say that the U.S. is not worried about oil because they're the world's biggest oil producer, right? But China and many Asian countries, of course, are worried about oil because they import most of their oil, including China, and I know Taiwan's government said, no, 没有问题. But, Korea and Japan and everybody, they have to think about where's our oil come from. So this probably is a good opportunity for the U.S. to also sell more oil. And also LNG, natural gas, liquid natural gas, which also a lot of it comes from Qatar, that country in the Zhongdong. So yeah. Okay, so here it says, a senior commander. Now you notice it doesn't say supreme. It says senior. Senior means what? Very high, right? Or a high ranking. We could say high ranking. Now what's the opposite of senior? Junior, yeah. So we have senior, junior. Like in high school, 高中 or 大学. Usually in America, like 大学, 3年级 would be junior, and 4年级 would be senior, right? In America, for high school, we usually also have 4 years. So we also say the same thing. Like your third year of high school would be a junior, and a fourth year of high school would be a senior. Okay, so yeah. So it says here, a senior commander from Iran's Revolutionary Guards, okay, this is a military force, said Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz and warned any vessel attempting to transit the waterway would be targeted, Iranian media reported. About a fifth of the world's oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, strait, we often talk about the Taiwan Strait, right? It's the Taiwan Haixia. But Strait of Hormuz, you know where that is, right? There's this very narrow channel between Oman and Iran. I've been there. I've actually been at the very tip of Oman, and you can look across the water. Now, you can't see Iran. Iran's over the horizon, but it's nearby, and all the ships go through that channel, that strait. So why don't we say it together? The Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz. Right. There's many straits. I mean, this is a common word. Like between Europe and Africa, there's the Strait of Gibraltar. Yeah. Gibraltar, how do you say it in Chinese? It's yeah, so Gibraltar's at the very southern tip of Spain, and then you have Africa, and you have to go through there to get into the Mediterranean. I just read a really great, I love history. I like reading military history. I just read a really great book on, during World War II, the Germany and Italy controlled most of the area around the Mediterranean. North Africa, Italy, Southern Europe was all under the control, early in World War II. And there was just one island in the middle of the Mediterranean that the British controlled, Malta. Okay, and so Germans and Italians kept attacking Malta to try to defeat it, to conquer it. But Winston Churchill said, they tried to send many supplies, and every time they would send ships there, they would get attacked by the Germans and the Italians, and the airplanes would bomb them, and submarines, Chenshliting would attack them. But there's this one special convoy. Churchill said, we have 2 months to send supplies, oil and supplies to Malta, otherwise it will fall. There's not enough food, there's not enough oil. So he gathered this really huge group of ships, aircraft carriers and ships to send them to to send this aid to Malta, and it was constantly being attacked by the whole way, all the way from the Strait of Gibraltar, all the way to Malta. They were attacked by German and Italian submarines and airplanes, and most of the ships got sunk. Most of the non-Navy ships, like out of, I think it was 12, commercial ships. I think out of 14 ships, 8 of them were sunk or something like that. But the other 6 ships made it through to Malta, and they saved it. They were able to keep Malta. So it was a really good book. It was really well written. By Britain. So Gibraltar was a safe place, but Malta was being attacked constantly by the Germans and the Italians. So yeah. It's the name of the operation, the operation to save Malta. It's called Operation, military operations have funny names, right? This one's called Operation Pedestal. And a pedestal, pedestal is like a stand that you put something on. Like, I'll give you an example. If you go out and you see a monument with a statue of somebody, like someone famous, I'm trying to think, is there any statues in Taichung? What? Well, in Taipei, okay. But okay, I'll give you a simple example. If you go to New York, there's a Statue of Liberty, right? Now, the Statue of Liberty is standing there, but underneath the Statue of Liberty, there's a base, right? That base is called a pedestal. Okay, so the base beneath the statue. So often, like if we want to praise, let's say you take somebody you know, and there's an English expression, we say to put him or her on a pedestal. It means that you hold them up, you make them look really good, okay? Or you 赞美他们, you praise them. So you can say, okay, I'll give you an example. If maybe if a husband really, really loves his wife and he thinks she's just great, you could say he loves to put his wife on a pedestal. It means he's always praising his wife and he's always saying how great his wife is, right? So you can say to put her on a pedestal, okay? So why don't we say together, pedestal. Pedestal. Okay, yeah, but it's not the statue, it's the base that pushes, that raises the statue up. It makes it higher, right? So that's the idea, is you make someone look higher or you raise them up, okay? Yeah. Would be difficult. Well, and there's another risk too, is Britain, England, they still controlled Egypt. And so they were afraid if Malta failed, they would also threaten Egypt. Of course, the British were fighting the Germans in North Africa, and the Germans under Rommel, the very famous general, was very successful. So Egypt was also threatened. So yeah, they were afraid that Winston Churchill felt we really need to hold Malta. But it wasn't also for strategic reasons, it was also for psychological reasons, right? Because Malta had been under the British for 200 years, and they were very loyal to the British. And so Churchill said, we must save them, we must support them. Even if it's very costly to us, we have to help them because they're very loyal to England, to Britain. And so it was very interesting. I found this out when I read the book. The Maltese, we say Maltese, the people of Malta, they were so 勇敢, so courageous, that the king gave them, everybody in the country, he gave them a medal. It's called the St. George Cross. It's an award. Now, he didn't give one to every person, but he presented this award to all the people of Malta. And so if you look at the Malta flag, today Malta is an independent country, 独立国家. If you look at their flag today, in the corner, there is a St. George Cross. So that's from World War II because King, who was the name of the king at that time? King Edward? No, not King Edward. Not King Charles. King George? During World War II, the king, anyhow, yeah. Elizabeth's father, yeah. So, he gave this award to the people of Malta, and so now it's on their flag. So it's kind of cool. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. So anyhow, it's a good story. I don't know if the book is in Chinese, but I bought it at Chenping in Taipei. So yeah, it's a recent book too. Okay. So anyhow, it says here, this is. He says that he warned that any vessel. When we say vessel, what does this mean? Ship. Right. So when we say vessel, often we talk about something that floats on the water, like a boat, a ship. But, we've talked about this before. Vessel gets used in other ways. Like we have blood vessels in our body, right? It's like a channel, like shuiguan, right? We also say is a vessel. But here, of course, vessel means like any kind of watercraft, like a boat or ship, okay? So any vessel, why don't we say together, vessel. Vessel. Attempting to transit. Now, we've talked about transit means to go through, right? To cross through. Like, we've talked about this. If you are a transit passenger at Taoyuan Jichang, it means you're not staying in Taiwan. You're just passing through Taipei to go somewhere else, okay? So why don't we say together, transit. Transit. And, of course, waterway is any kind of water channel. We could say a river, a lake, not a lake, but the water has to be moving. So a canal, a river, a strait, slough. There's anything where the water is moving. Yeah, a brook. Yeah. So and it says the waterway would be targeted. It means they would attack any vessel going to the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, let's read this. A senior commander from Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Let's say it again. Revolutionary Guards said Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz and warned any vessel attempting to transit the waterway would be targeted. Iranian media reported about a fifth of the world's oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz. Right. Okay. It's, and we use that, like for Taiwan, we say Taiwan Strait. We don't say the Strait of Taiwan. But for Gibraltar, we say the Straits of Gibraltar. And sometimes strait gets used with an S, and sometimes there's no S. So it just depends. There's no rule for that. Sometimes we say, I've heard people say the Taiwan Straits with an S, but also I've heard people say the Taiwan Strait with no S. So I guess it gets, yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Dire Strait. Well, no. There's not a real place called the Dire Straits. Yeah. Well, no, it's a band, but it also is a real. There's a meaning behind it. No, that's Tears for Fears. That's the wrong band. You're getting your 80s bands mixed up. I know 80s music, so yeah. So in dire straits, dire means what? We've talked about this word. Yeah, dire means dangerous, desperate. Okay. 很危险 or 危险, yeah. So anyhow, dire, right? You can say he is in dire trouble, okay? He's in a dire situation, 情况. But if you say someone is in dire straits, it means they're in a very, very difficult position, in a dangerous position. So that's a very common expression, actually. Someone's in dire straits. Yes. You could say in dire need, of something. Like he said, I'm in dire need of money, means I'm desperate for money. I'm in dire need of water, or food. We think of something that's essential. Remember, we talked about the word essential, right? So if you're in dire need of something, it means you're desperate. You really need it now, okay? So why don't we say together, in dire straits. In dire straits. Let's say it another way, in dire need. Okay, yeah, so, or we could simply say this is a dire situation. Okay, so that word dire is very useful. Okay, yeah, you were... That's also Tears for Fears. Yeah, you're thinking of another band. So yeah, Tears for Fears. It's a good 80s band. No, not George Michael's. George Michael is Wham. You guys all need to study your 80s music more. Okay. So yeah, Dire Straits, what was the... I was never a big fan of Dire Straits, but yeah, Sultans of Swing. There's a good Sultans of Swing. Sultan is like a king. Yeah, there we go. Good. Yeah, I know they have many other hits too, but yeah. If you ever want to do a class on 80s music, I can teach you that. Yeah. But yeah, the band you keep talking about, everybody wants to rule the world, shout, that's Tears for Fears. It's okay. I'm not a big, I was never like really into Dire Straits. Dire Straits, in case you're confused, Dire Straits is also the name of a British rock band that was very popular in the 70s and 80s. Maybe a little the 90s too, but mostly the 80s. And Tears for Fears is another British group. Actually, it's mostly two guys. Actually, it's a band, but there were mainly two guys. Yeah, they had a song called Shout, and Everybody Wants to Rule the World, and good bands. George Michael started with another group. Actually, it was two guys called Wham, W-H-A-M. And then who nobody remembers anymore. And then George Michael went solo. He became a solo artist. Yeah, very, very successful. I'll tell you, I waste a lot of time on YouTube watching. I think maybe you know that when I say a reaction video, and a reaction video is where somebody watches a music video and they react to it. And I discovered this a few years ago, and it's addicting. Because I'll tell you why. You know how when you have music that you like and you introduce it to your friends and you want to get their reaction, you want to hear what they think. And if your friends like the music, you're very happy, right? It makes you feel happy. So reaction videos, often it's like old music, like maybe music from 20 or 30 years ago, and then you watch somebody who's much younger. Maybe they're a teenager, or they're in their 20s, or maybe even older, but they're watching it for the first time, and then they react to it. And I don't know, it makes you feel good. Especially if it's a song you like, and then somebody's like, wow, this is great. I've never heard this before. Now, sometimes I wonder if they've really heard it or not. Maybe they have heard it, and they're just pretending. But it is very addicting to watch these videos. There's something psychological about it. Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, I jump forward here, but we'll read one or two paragraphs, and then we'll go to a different story. It says, meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, ahead of a March 3 visit to the White House, planned before the war began, indicated he would not admonish Trump over the war. Okay, so this is the leader, the president, the chancellor. They use the term chancellor, which is a very unusual term. Most countries use the word president or prime minister, but in Germany they use the term chancellor. Okay, why don't we say together, chancellor? Chancellor. Which is like a prime minister. It's very similar. Okay, so I think Chancellor Adolf Hitler. I think maybe at the beginning he used that term chancellor when he first gained power. But of course later on everybody just called him the Führer, the leader, yeah. Ahead of the March 3 visit to the White House, planned before the war began. So this March 3 visit was planned before the war started. He indicated, of course, indicate means to express, to say, to indicate, he would not admonish Trump. Now, here's a good word. What does admonish mean? Yeah, it's like to ma. Yeah. So we could say to scold, right? Yeah, or I think he used the word reprimand. Yeah, that's a good word too. Scold, reprimand. Sorry, it's a little bit crowded here. Okay, to scold. I think you know scold, right? Your mother or father probably scolded you many times, or your teacher scolds you. Reprimand is similar, right? If you say you shouldn't have done that, that was wrong, reprimand. Chastise also is a similar idea, is to say you shouldn't do that, that's wrong, stop doing that. They're all very similar. So to admonish sometimes can also be like to warn. Yeah, to warn, 警告, right? But yeah, so these words are all very similar. Let's start with this word, admonish. Admonish. And if you want to turn this into a ming, so we say admonishment, M-E-N-T, admonishment. Okay, so why don't we say it to admonishment. Admonishment. Okay, and then these words, scold. Scold. Reprimand. Reprimand. Chastise. Chastise. Right, yeah. So if you're upset or you think somebody did something wrong, you might chastise them, or you might reprimand them, or you might admonish them, or scold them. Okay, so let's read this together. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, ahead of a March 3 visit to the White House, planned before the war began, indicated he wouldn't admonish Trump over the war. Okay. So here he continues. He says, we recognize the dilemma. So we're not going to be lecturing our partners on their military strikes against Iran, Merz said, according to Reuters. Reuters is a news agency. Okay, so what is a dilemma? Yeah, it's a difficult situation. It's like, you say, oh, that's a big wen hao, right? A dilemma is a problem, a question, something we have to solve or we're not sure about. And some people say dilemma, and some people say dilemma. Dilemma or dilemma. Either is okay. Dilemma. Okay. So why don't we say together dilemma? Dilemma. Yeah. So he says we understand this dilemma or this dilemma because we're not going to be lecturing our partners. And what does to lecture mean? It can, but right now I'm kind of like I'm lecturing to you, right? I'm like a teacher will lecture. In fact, there's a job in a university. We say they are a university lecturer. Okay. Now, lecturer is usually like a title that's lower than like a professor. We have a 教授, right? Professor, and then under that we have a lecturer with an lecture with a U-R-E-R, lecturer. So yeah. So to lecture means to teach, to teach or lecture, like you teach to a group of students, to lecture. Usually means that someone stands at the front and they lecture. Okay. Now if I'm teaching you one-on-one or maybe one-on-two, then it's not really a lecture. But a lecture is when someone stands in front of a class and they teach. We say to lecture. But when we say to lecture somebody, it can also mean to reprimand them. So if you're saying, you did that wrong, you should be careful, that's not good, then you can say he was lecturing me because of what he thought was wrong. It's kind of like, it's almost like the idea that I know better than you. I'm smarter than you, so I'm going to lecture you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of similar. A soapbox is, a soapbox is it's a box you put soap in it, right? It's usually a wooden box. We don't use this anymore. I mean, there's no soapbox today when you buy soap, you buy it at the 超级市场, right? But in the old days, there used to be a special wooden box that they would, 卖, 肥皂 or, soap in. And so when people wanted to make a speech, they would put out the box and they would stand on it, just like that word pedestal, right? So it's like you stand on it and then you're higher and people can see you, and then you lecture them, right? So when somebody says he is on his soapbox, or sometimes you would say, get off your soapbox, it means stop lecturing me. Don't tell me what to do. So that idea, it's an expression, means to lecture somebody, or to either get on, you say to get on your soapbox means to talk down to people. Yeah. It's a bit like being condescending. Yeah, to give a speech, but it's more of the idea. It's like saying, you should do this, or you're wrong, or I don't agree with you. Yeah. So we call that to get on your soapbox. Okay, sorry, I'll squeeze this in here. Yeah. Soap box, okay? It's one word, okay? I've been to Hyde Park in London, and there's a place called Speaker's Corner where anybody can talk about their ideas to everybody, and people listen and debate them. It doesn't have to be a soapbox. I think you can just stand there. Yeah, there might be a soapbox, but I don't know. I don't remember a soapbox. But I still remember when I was there was, I'm trying to remember. I think there was a Christian guy, 基督徒, and he was lecturing, he was talking, and there were some 回教徒 guys there that were debating him. And it was very interesting because the Christian guy was, I think he was pretty calm. He was just talking. But the Muslim guys were getting quite angry. They were like, you can't say that. Why are you saying that? So they must have some rules. I don't know if there's rules. Like you can't attack people, right? In Hyde Park, yeah. So anyhow, okay, let's read this then. We recognize the dilemma. Dilemma. So we're not going to be lecturing our partners on their military strikes against Iran. Mertz said, according to Reuters. Right, okay. So yeah. Okay, anyhow, let's go to a different article. We spent a lot of time on this, but I've heard that Mertz, the German chancellor, he likes America. He spent time in America as a university student, or he lived there for a while. So he likes America much better than his other leaders. So yeah, he likes to support America. So anyhow, let's go to another. Yeah? Yeah. Right. Well, but the question, and here's the big question, I think this is not completely clear yet, is what is the goal, right? If your goal is not to change the government, then what's the goal? The goal is what? And I think that's the big question that everybody has in their mind right now, is that is the goal to change the government, to create a new, or is the goal to simply get rid of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles in Iran? What's the goal? And I think that will make a difference, because if America's goal is to change the government, well then, yeah, I mean that's a very ambitious plan. And but you notice Donald Trump said something at the beginning. He said, basically after the U.S. Killed Khomeini, he said the Iranian people now have the opportunity to create a new government, to get their freedom, right? But the way he said it was, it's up to you, right? We're not going to do it for you. you need to take charge. So I think what he was trying to say is, the U.S. isn't going to come in and fight a long war in Iran, and we're going to, get rid of all the revolutionary guards, and then we're going to give you a new government. We're creating a situation where we hope you can take charge of creating your own government, overthrow that government. Of course, 2 months ago there were or 2 or 3 months ago there was huge protests in Iran against the Iranian government and the leader, and of course many Iranians were killed by the military and the government. So I think you saw them on TV probably celebrating, right? There were many Iranians in Iran, but also in other countries really celebrating, saying, this is great, we love this. I told my friends I never thought I would see the day where I saw he was in Germany. There was a huge celebration, like thousands of Iranians. And they were waving, pre-revolutionary Iranian flags, the old Iranian flag. But they were also waving Israeli flags, which shocked me, and American flags. American flags I wasn't too surprised, but they were waving Israeli flags too, and they were saying, thank you, Bibi. And Bibi is the nickname for Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. So it was funny to see Iranian and Israeli flags being waved by the Iranians. But it's not unthinkable, because I was watching an interview with an Iranian, someone outside of Iran, someone who supports a free Iran, and he said he sees if this is successful, he sees a strong relationship. If there's a new Iran, he thinks there'll be a very strong relationship between Iran and Israel, because Iran and Israel used to be allies before the revolution. They were actually very close to each other. But of course, the revolution broke that, and Iran became Israel's greatest enemy. So he thinks under a new Iran, there would be a strong relationship between Iran and Israel again. So I think that's very interesting. It would change everything completely.
What is the percentage of Muslims in the Iranian population?
I think it's very large. It's very high. Yeah, most of them, I would say, are probably Muslims. But yeah. Yeah. So there's a word you should become familiar with, and that is the Shah. Okay? So the Shah is the former king of Iran, okay, or Persia. You know the old name for Iran is Persia, right? Yeah. Indians are too, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we say together Persia? Persia. And sometimes, even now as a 形容词, we say Persian. Persian. Like, I remember Taichung used to have a Persian restaurant, okay? It didn't last very long. It was out near Dakeng, but they served Iranian food. So Persian restaurant. Why don't we say this together? Shah. Shah. Yeah, so the Shah of Iran. So it's like king, right? So it's interesting, because one of the reasons Israel, I think, attacked, the U.S. too, but we say that there's a good word. We say Israel considers right now, today, they consider Iran an existential threat, okay? And this is a good word. There we are. A. So what word do you see here? Exist, okay? So exist means to be there, right? So if something is an existential threat to your country, what does that mean? It means it threatens, not your life, it threatens you could threaten your life, but it means it threatens your country's existence. So Iran, of course, has said over and over and over again, we want to wipe out Israel, right? We want to eliminate Israel. They're our greatest enemy. And of course, Israel says if Iran gets nuclear weapons, they could wipe out Israel. Of course, Israel also has nuclear weapons. But yeah, so Israel thinks that Iran, especially with nuclear weapons, is an existential threat to Israel. I mean, it would threaten the existence of Israel, okay? Does everybody understand that? Yeah. Okay, so why don't we say together, exist. Exist. Existential. Existential. As a general word, we just say the existence of something. It means to exist. Existence. Existence. Okay, and then one more time. Existential threat. Okay, so this is a good word, not just for Iran, because I saw this used just recently, about 3 months ago, and it made China very, very, very angry. The new Prime Minister of Japan, Sanae Takaichi, Gao Shi, right? What did she say? She said an attack on Taiwan is an existential threat to Japan. So according to the Japanese Shinfa Constitution, if there is an existential threat to your country, you can use military force against to do something. And of course, for the Prime Minister to say if attack on Taiwan is an existential threat to Japan, that means Japan, by their Shinfa, can use military force to get involved with Taiwan, to help Taiwan. So it's a very interesting word, and we see this used quite a bit. Okay. So anyhow, it's a good word. So I just want to quickly, we have a few minutes. I've been reading a lot about this article, and it's I actually have been seeing a lot on YouTube about it too. It says how the war in Iran is straining the U.S.-UK relationship. Okay. This is an introduction, so we'll get to. Now, if you say straining a relationship, what does that mean? Yeah, it means it's putting pressure on the relationship. So maybe you have a friend, a 老朋友, and there was something that happens, or there's some disagreement. You can say that disagreement is straining my friendship or straining my relationship with him. It's putting our friendship under, we say under stress. Okay, under stress or under strain. We could say that too. Under strain or under stress. Okay, it means under pressure. Okay, why don't we say together? Under stress. Under stress. Strain. Okay, so now this war is straining the relationship. Okay, so this is the beginning of the article. It says, the Prime Minister of UK is Keir Starmer. That's his name. So it says, Keir Starmer has never had a bad word to say in public about Donald Trump. That is not being reciprocated now as the American president lambasts the British Prime Minister over his reluctance to join the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. There's some really good words here. Okay, first of all, what does to reciprocate mean? Means to give back. So reciprocal means usually like 双面 or it means both sides. So I'll give you an example. If I help you, I give 帮忙你一个事情, I help you with something, and you reciprocate, it means you help me back, right? So you could say he reciprocated my favor, or he reciprocated my assistance, means he did something to return. We say to return the favor, okay? Actually, that's a good expression. You could say he returned my favor, or returned the favor. Okay, so you could say he reciprocated, he returned the favor, okay? So why don't we say together, reciprocate. Reciprocate. And if we want to turn this into a 形容词, we say reciprocal. This becomes a C-A-L. Reciprocal. So reciprocal tariff would be like, you have 关税, right? So if somebody puts 关税on you, then you put 关税on them. So it goes both ways. It's reciprocal, okay? Why don't we say together, reciprocal. Reciprocal. Okay. So here it says Keir Starmer has never said a bad word about Donald Trump in public, okay? Maybe in private. But he says that is not being reciprocated. Donald Trump is not reciprocating now as the American president lambasts the British Prime Minister. And what's this word? To lambast means what? Yeah, it means attack, but usually to attack verbally. So if you again, that's, I guess the best word is to somebody, but criticize very strongly, like to really somebody for something. We say to lambast somebody. Okay, it's a funny word, but let's say it together, lambast. Lambast. Right, so you could say he lambasted me over my decision. Okay, it means he attacked me. Again, it's verbal, it's speaking, it's using words. Okay, so the American president lambasts the British Prime Minister over his reluctance to join the Israeli strikes. Okay, so of course, the British Prime Minister has been very reluctant to join Israel and the U.S. in attacking Iran. Okay, let's read this together. Keir Starmer has never had a bad word to say in public about Donald Trump. That is not being reciprocated. Okay, again, reciprocated. Now, as the American president lambasts the British Prime Minister. Let's try it again. Lambasts the British Prime Minister over his reluctance to join the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. Of course, when we add an I to the Israel, that becomes a 形容词. Israeli. We say Israeli. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just like we say American, right? Okay. Okay, so he goes on, it says here, I was just talking about Winston Churchill, right, in World War II. So he says, this is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with, Trump said Tuesday at the White House, blasting Britain's reluctance to let U.S. warplanes use its bases. Okay, so again, we use this word reluctant. If you're reluctant to do something, does everybody understand that? Means I'm not really willing or eager to do something. If someone says, I reluctantly agreed to his idea, it means I agreed with him, but I was not very eager, right? I kind of, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, so why don't we say together, reluctance. Reluctance. Okay, so of course Donald Trump's criticizing him, saying this guy is not Winston Churchill. Because why? Because Winston Churchill and America had a very close relationship during World War II. Okay, so let's read this. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with. Trump said Tuesday at the White House, blasting Britain's reluctance to let U.S. warplanes use its bases. Okay, again, blasting, remember we talked about, a strong criticism, to admonish, to blast, to criticize. We say that word, to blast. Okay. It says here, the dispute is roiling a relationship that Starmer worked hard to forge and further straining transatlantic ties frayed by Trump's America First foreign policy and transactional approach to international relations. Okay, so roiling. Does everybody know what this word is? This is a good word. Roiling. What would be another word for that? To stir up or to upset, okay, or to make chaotic, 乱, to. So I'll tell you what we use the word roil from originally is like, when you have an ocean, and there's a storm like a typhoon, and the waves start to get really rough. They start to go up and down. The water starts to get disturbed. So I think maybe another word is disturb. So you can say to disturb the water. If you shake the water or the wind blows in the water and the water starts moving, we say it's stirred up. It's disrupted. It's stirred up. It's roiling. Okay, so here it's saying it's roiling this relationship. It's stirring up. It's disturbing. It's disrupting. You understand what I mean, right? Okay, so why don't we say together roiling? Roiling. Okay, it's roiling a relationship that Starmer worked hard to forge. Now, the word forge, I'm not sure if we learned this before, but what does to forge mean? Right, to create it, to make it harder. Where does this word come from? Iron, yes. Yeah. So when you forge iron, what do? You put it in the heat, you make it very hot, and then you hammer it, right? and you make it into steel or hot, iron, and it's very hard, right? And so when you forge something, it means you make it strong, you make it solid, okay? And a forge can also be a 名词. A forge is a place where we make iron or make steel. Usually it's a very place. There's a oven. It's like a very hot oven, where you put the metal into and it melts the iron, and then you take it out and make it, into something. So we call that a forge. Okay, so why don't we say together, forge. Forge. So we often talk about to forge a relationship, to forge a connection. It means to create or to make stronger, okay? So it worked hard to forge, and is further straining transatlantic. Of course, Atlantic is the Atlantic Ocean, right? Transatlantic, we talk about the Trans-Pacific, right? Taipingyang, but here we say transatlantic ties, relationships, frayed by Trump's America First foreign policy. What does to fray mean? To be weakened, yeah, or to damage, okay. Where does this word originally come from? Does anyone? Clothing. So, if you have maybe you have a shirt that you really like to wear all the time, and you wear it for many years, but you notice after time, the edges start to get, you start to see its damage, right? Like threads start to come out. Yeah, okay. So we call that, so that's frayed, yeah, exactly. And then it starts to come apart, right? And then once it comes apart, maybe it's time to diao, right? So we call that, you can say he was wearing a frayed shirt or frayed pants, okay? Yeah. No, that's flay, F-L-A-W. It means to remove the skin. So why don't we say together, frayed. Frayed. Okay, and frayed, like I said, can be a 形容词 too. You can say a frayed shirt or frayed clothing. Okay, frayed by Trump's American First foreign policy and transactional approach to international relations. I've talked about this, I think, before, but transaction, we talk about a business transaction. It's like a business deal, okay? So transactional is a 形容词. Does anyone know what that means? Yeah, how do you say it? Yeah, it means like, yeah, to buy and sell. It's like our relationship has nothing to do with our feelings, right? Or how I like you or don't like you. It's all about business. Business first, right? Like, what can you do for me? Or what can I do for you? It's just like a business deal, right? There's no, like, friendship, okay? So, yeah, that's so the one we say together, transactional. Transactional. And then as a 名词, transaction. Right. When you go to 7-Eleven and you buy something, that is a business transaction, right? Because you give them money and they give you something, right? So we call that a business deal or a business transaction. That's the same word, same idea. Okay? So let's just read this, and then we're out of time today. The dispute is roiling. One more time. The dispute is roiling a relationship that Starmer worked hard to forge, and further straining. Further straining transatlantic ties. Transatlantic ties. Frayed by Trump's American First foreign policy and transactional approach. Okay, again, transactional approach to international relations. Right. So, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Populist, yeah. Well, he's definitely a populist. We call that populist president. Like he's appealing to the everyday people, in America, So, I think Trump is definitely more, that's his whole slogan is America First. But so it's very interesting to watch the situation as it develops and we'll see where it goes. But it has been kind of interesting because Starmer is taking a lot of criticism from the other political party. They call them the Tories, or the Conservative Party. Of course, he's from the Labour Party, right? So I was watching the Parliament, British Parliament, and someone from the other party stood up and gave a speech, and they just attacked, blasted Starmer, because they're like, America's our friend, our ally. We have a special relationship, and you're weak. You're not courageous. You're not helping America. So it's funny because, of course, Trump's not happy, but the other political party is also using this to attack Starmer and saying you should do more. So it's entertaining. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. You're saying this news? This was should say up here. No. This is well, this was written by the Philadelphia Inquirer. Yeah, this newspaper. I've actually been there. I've been to this newspaper before. I visited them, yeah. Philadelphia Inquirer, yeah. I used to read them every day. So, yeah. Yeah. For where? Fox? Oh, Christian Science Herald. Yeah. I think it's still around. Yeah, I think it's still around. I used to know one of their 记者 in Taiwan. Yeah. Christian Science Herald. Yeah. Very conservative. Yeah. Christian Science is not 基督教. It's another... kind of. It's different. It's like a spin-off of Christianity. It's not directly... anyhow, we can talk about that later. Okay, well, nice seeing you all, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.